But on the mainstream, I don't see that combustion engines going to survive at all. And also the performance, as you said, and the efficiency increase. Imagine if you get double the power at half the cost in a battery cell, then nobody needs combustion engines for smaller, medium-sized cars.
Hello, this is week one of the Plugged In podcast, and today we'll be interviewing the former CEO of Pininfarina, Michael Perschke. I'm joined alongside Andrew from the Current Review and Matt from Living EVs.
Hi, guys.
So we'd like to start off with a few questions. So, what was your time at Pininfarina like? How was daily culture of Pininfarina, and what was the main sort of goal when you were there?
Well, I think you have to slice it in different phases, right? We had I would call it the stealth mode phase that was very much till February, March 2018, when we really launched the venture, because before we were doing a lot of research, business plans, worked a lot behind the scenes, grouped a core team of 5, 6, 7 people, like a core Navy SEALs squadron. And, that was, you did basically everything. And the big bang was actually launching the brand Automobili Pininfarina on the back of the Formula E Grand Prix in Rome in April 2018. So up to that time, it was very, very, very much stealth mode, and we didn't really communicate. We didn't even have yet a legal entity. So actually we were launching a project, but already with a big name. And especially the last 4 weeks before we launched the whole thing, we basically did everything, and we worked kind of 24/7 because we launched the brand together with GQ. We had a really big event in Rome at a beautiful palace on the back of a Formula E Grand Prix. We also presented the idea at the morning of a press conference of a Formula E Grand Prix in Rome, because we said Italy is our home country, is Automobili Pininfarina. So we have to launch it on the back of our home Grand Prix. And we had barely a team of 5, 6, 7 people. We didn't have much of an event agency or press PR company. Everything was we did it ourselves, really. And then from April 18, probably the first 6 months were super hectic. We needed to recruit a lot of people. We needed to find offices, find the legal entity, open a bank account, all the basics, finding lawyers, tax consultants. That was really hyperactive mode, because already after April, the next big thing was that we went to Pebble Beach. And in Pebble Beach, already the first time, we showed a design model. So we needed to go to US, we needed to find a cool house where we want to do the private viewing, activate dealers. We started activating dealers globally, and I specifically focused also on the US, started reaching out to the media. I think I had my first interview with Alex Guberman from E4 Electric in April or May 2018. So basically you did nearly everything. And then probably after Pebble Beach, we got a very good reconfirmation that we're on a good wicket. People liked the car. We locked in 30, 40 reservations. People wanted the car, which, there hasn't been really any other precedent case except us and Rimac at that time to announce a 2 million plus EV hypercar. Lotus was not heard of at that time, and nobody else was there. So basically was Rimac and us to say we're going to launch there. So Pebble Beach 18 was a very good reconfirmation. And then from that onwards, the little snowball became like a real avalanche. We created really proper teams. We set up our Italian office. We set up a real design team. So culture was still, I wouldn't call it hectic, but very ambitious, very intense, a lot of things at the same time, very short decision-making processes, very pragmatic. That was probably, for the first 12 months, really by motion. We've been 20, 30 people. We did 2 offsites. We got people all together. We hired people from many companies. I hired people from AMG, from Ferrari, from Maserati, from Tesla. So we really built a very good team. And when we went for our bigger offsite back in December 2018, we've been already 45, 50 people, and it felt really good, very, very good spirit. So And then, of course, you become a more like a company. So 2019 was earmarked by becoming a company. We launched the full-fledged car at Geneva Motor Show in 2019. And then you build like pillars, proper departments, you become more of a company, you set targets, your shareholders become more ambitious, how you're going to deal with the money. And we've been much more in the media. I mean, the good thing is when we launched the Battista in Geneva, we were the #1 sports car brand of all launches across the world from a media coverage. The only guys who were close to us or just a slightly notch ahead of us was Bugatti with a 16-cylinder, most expensive car in the world announcement, and that traveled a little bit further than the Battista. But other than that, the Battista even beat the SF90 Ferrari announcement and many others. So that was really, really cool. And we had a lot of bloggers also coming for Geneva. We got some really, really cool coverages on some crazy channels, and they really loved the car because it was something really different. And then it became more of a normal car. I would say the first 12 to 18 months been really crazy. I mean, very unique experience, which I was very gifted to be able to be part of and shape it. And then, you know, you would develop more into a proper, I wouldn't say normal car company, but an EV startup company. At the beginning was like more like a mission. We were building a plane while going on the runway.
Yeah, no, it's a stunning car, the Battista. It was interesting you said there about setting it up as like a legal entity and all that. So what is the exact connection between Pininfarina, the styling house, and Pininfarina, the car company? Like, do you share much resources together, or?
Yeah, it's two completely separate companies. We have partially the same shareholder, but we're like sister cousin companies. So none of the two have a mix with the other one from a management point of view, from a shareholding point of view. But of course, Automobili Pininfarina used a lot of resources from Pininfarina. At the beginning, still a lot of the design was done by Pininfarina before I set up my own design team, which was still recruited to a large extent from Pininfarina people. If I didn't work for Pininfarina, I would work for other Italian design houses like Giugiaro, like Sagato, like Ital Design, because we wanted to preserve really a very strong Italian design DNA. That was super, super important. And then on the engineering side, we really had people from everywhere, from Faraday, from Tesla, from Maserati, from Ferrari, from BMW, from Porsche. But the design, we had a very intense collaboration. Yeah, so it is still one Pininfarina from a customer design perception point of view. But of course, the design house puts the badge on the side of the car, while Automobili Pininfarina has the badge in the front. So it's the very first car, really, which was carrying the Pininfarina name as an OEM car brand and not just as designed by. That was a big step.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine. Also, so I know it's very hard to nail down in the media because you plan to build 150 Battistas in total, but like they said they're nearly sold out. So are they still available? Are all the build slots gone at the moment, or is there some still available?
So I'm not completely in the company anymore, but I know. Yeah. So the first, as far as I know, the first year of a production is of course sold out. And then for the second, third year, as far as I know, there's still production slots available. It's also different by market because the sequence of launch and production will be different by region. So Europe will start first, then you will have North America, then you will have rest of the world. So depending by the region, also different slots are taken, different slots are still available.
Perfect. And so is that 150 just for the first year, like for all the regions combined, or is it for
no, that's the total production of the entire Battista.
And will that be roughly talking, I think 3 years, is the plan?
Roughly 3 years.
So around 50 year. Okay.
You have to calculate around about 4 to 5 cars a month. Yeah, wow, so you're talking around about 32 to 34 months of production.
I think that says a lot about the amount of work that's going into each car when you're only making 5 or 6 a month. Definitely, yeah.
It's a very heavy, manual, physical, intense piece of art you have to put together.
And of course, it shares much in common with the Rimac C2. So how much of it is actually from the C2, obviously the chassis and such, but like how much of it is original designed in-house by Pininfarina, and then like what kind of parts are supplied directly from Rimac?
So, I mean, one of the core signature parts which comes from Rimac is, of course, the battery pack. So the T-shaped carbon monocoque battery pack that originates from Rimac, and the electrical motors. The suspension system had been adjusted to give it a little bit of a different feeling, because the Battista is more like a luxury hyper GT, while the Rimac tend to be a little bit more of a track tool. But on the weight, they don't differentiate so much. But anything you touch and feel and you really see is pretty much Pininfarina. So the interior, the exterior, the entire design, the body, and everything which a customer can touch and feel is very much a Pininfarina design, and also made in Italy. It's a little bit similar, like you take the Audi R8 and the Lamborghini Huracan. They share also certain components, but when you touch and feel and drive them, they feel very different. One is an Italian beast, and the other one is a refined German engineering. And so the Battista is more the Italian beast, and the Rimac is then the wild Croatian track machine.
Perfect.
So that's pretty cool. So I have a quick question. Like, so for the production line as Pininfarina, this is the first car Pininfarina Automobili Pininfarina have created. Do you take like a lot of like manufacturing ideas from Ferrari, like with how you produce like the low volume and super high quality cars?
I would say less from Ferrari, because even Ferrari doesn't do their one-offs in-house. Like the limited number and one-off cars, a lot of them are still produced at Pininfarina in Italy. So the J50 America, all these kind of cars, actually they take the body and they take everything, they take it to Pininfarina, and Pininfarina does the coach building. So all the very small, very handicraft manufacturing actually is still very much a competence residing within Pininfarina as a competence. And so that's also good, because we can pass on, or Pininfarina can pass on that knowledge, and does a contractual manufacturing even of a Battista. So the Battista is produced at Pininfarina with people from Pininfarina. So all the competences, the capabilities, the experiences from Pininfarina are directly used for Automobili Pininfarina. That's the benefit of being so close and being sister companies.
So with, because on the topic of electric vehicles, Karma from California, they have the Karma GT, which has been designed by Pininfarina. Would you mind explaining the process of how Pininfarina is contracted, I'm assuming, to design a vehicle for a specific manufacturer?
I mean, Pininfarina has been doing that for 90 years now. So this year was the 90th anniversary of Pininfarina. So ever since inception, Battista Pininfarina was in the business of designing cars for others. And it's a pretty normal process, normal in sense of, there are car manufacturers out there, and they want to create one of the most beautiful cars in the world. And I know the Karma GT, which was, I think, at the LA Motor Show in at the New York Motor Show in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, in March 2019, I saw there. So I know from the outside, because I'm not within Pininfarina, there's a high level of secrecy of every project. So even if we're a sister company, we never knew what kind of projects will work for other manufacturers. But I know, because I also know people from Karma, that they were looking around and they wanted something to look a little bit more Italian European. And then you don't have many choices, right? Ital Design is more or less owned by Volkswagen Group. So it's not necessarily used a lot by non-Volkswagen Group brands, except some Chinese. And then you basically have Giugiaro's small company, you have Zagato, and you have Pininfarina. And then it goes without saying, because of the 64 designs Pininfarina has done alone, just for Ferrari, including the F40, the F50, the Enzo, that goes a long way. And that's why many manufacturers end up pitching and letting Pininfarina give a quote or concept, normally on a sketch level. that gives you like the broad idea how could it look like. And this is also where the Battista started. And then they move it from there and say, okay, you know, we like that concept design. We want you to do a show car. Normally, Pininfarina gets a lot of show car assignments, and the Karma GT was one of them. But they did show cars for VinFast. They did show cars for many Chinese brands. We worked a lot, of course, for Ferrari, for Maserati. We did at some time also work a lot for Mini. So basically, it is probably the #1 design house in the world if you want something Italian. And that's where the Karma GT also ended up to be designed by Pininfarina for Karma. And then they built the show car physically at the facilities in Italy.
Wow.
Yeah.
It does look pretty attractive when you see the pictures of it.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful car. I saw it at the New York Motor Show, and it's a beautiful car. It looks stunning, and of course, it has this very unique, sleek Italian design. The proportions, the dimensions, the surfaces. You can see where it comes from. Even if it wouldn't have a badge, you would very quickly say it looks very much like a Pininfarina design.
So when you first showed it at Geneva, actually, like how functional was the car? Like, could it actually, like, of its performance, could it actually match it, or was it purely theoretical at that stage?
No, the car we launched in Geneva was what we call a running show car. So it had its own engine, it had its own battery, it had its own electronics, but that was still far away from a real serial intent, production intent car. But when you go to Instagram, to Automobili Pininfarina, and you want to use that video, there's a video from March 2019, because we launched the Battista on the back of the New York Motor Show in a different location. And you see the car driving by itself through downtown of Manhattan. So it could drive by itself, it could move by itself, but of course not anywhere close to the spec levels the car is going to have when it's going to be launched in spring next year.
Of course, yeah. And so you say the battery, of course, being sourced from Rimac, so that's 120 kilowatt in size, I believe. So just from the pure specs. Interesting, I saw the top speed is because the Rimac C2 can achieve over 250 miles an hour theoretically, whereas the Battista is limited to 217. Is there any particular reason behind that, limiting the top speed to?
Well, this information is not totally correct, because the remarks in the homologated version, how you buy it and how it will be homologated and put on European roads, is limited only to 330 kilometers an hour. While the Battista is in its serial production at 350 kilometers an hour. So it's 20 kilometers faster than the Rimacs as a homologated car with the homologated street tires. But the Battista can achieve more or less similar top performance levels with different set of tires, and of course in a non-homologated version, so not what you have written on your registration papers. You would be able to unlock that if you are on a safe track, but it is not allowed and homologated for this kind of speed on a public road.
Okay. Perfect.
So you talk about how you're less involved with Pininfarina right now. Can you explain what the reason is for why you're not as connected with Pininfarina now?
So I left the venture by end of March for personal reasons, and also because I'm currently investing in a couple of ventures myself. A couple of them are startups, and I'm also currently engaged in a couple of financial transactions. So I wanted to move out a little bit out of an operative role, because I've been in an operative role in the car industry for the last 25 years, more or less. And I wanted to go more into the investor's role. I mean, I've been around with startups and things like that for many times. And I see a lot of opportunities on the investment side. The problem is when you are a CEO and you run a company, you don't have time for that. I mean, but at best you can do a little bit of stock trading. But the interesting thing is that you find targets, companies which are undervalued, either in a transformational deal that you buy a brand, which is a good brand, but might not be electric yet, and you completely transform them to electric, or you look at other opportunities outside the space of four wheels, where there's a lot of opportunities in the connectivity space, in the autonomous space. And I had a lot of exposure to these industries and sectors, over the last 3 years and even before. And that's why I don't have these positions right now on my profile. But I have been recently investing in myself in 3 different ventures where I'm also on the advisory board. And I love to, be able to play around with more things, be less busy in doing the day-to-day operations and building more a network of companies and using my network, which I gained over time, and also bridging between US and Europe and China. There are lots of opportunities in China you can bring to Europe and US. There are opportunities in Israel you can bring to Europe. And when you are, let's say, in a tight box in a way from financials and everything, you cannot really make full use of all these opportunities which are out there. When you're more in a financial investor's role, you have much more time to build these pieces of a puzzle into a holistic picture. And that's where I decided for myself that I want to go more into the investment side of the business.
Definitely, yeah. I think that was quite interesting what you said about transforming brands just completely to electric. I mean, you look at even the Volkswagen Group and what they've done, like the MEB platform, how they can use it for such a wide array of vehicles, like, and they
Absolutely.
can really bring the
or
whole
you
brand.
Look at Harley Davidson with a LiveWire, they're electrifying now the brand Harley Davidson. And I think there are a lot of brands out there which are really cool, or they used to be cool, but for a generation like yours, you guys might find it pretty normal to drive an electric car. Maybe you still maybe have one combustion car, but I know a lot of kids who are maybe at the age somewhere between 8 and 15, which tell their parents today, hey, Dad, please don't take that noisy car. I rather like you to take a Tesla or the Taycan. It's so much more cool because it makes that noise like, this pod race from Star Wars, like boom, 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 boom. So I think the generation growing up now, where Tesla is the new normal, they get very much used that electric can be super cool. The acceleration is super cool. The car is not so noisy, but it has all the IoT and connectivity opportunities, which you don't normally get with combustion engine cars because it has much more units to supply to. So it doesn't have the free computer space. You don't have the NVIDIA box on board, which can do like crazy things. So I realizing that there's a big generation out there, which is actually sucking up electricity as the new normal. And the combustion engines are becoming like the dinosaurs. And I think that's where I'm fully convinced that the electric movement, and probably even more on the B2B side than on the B2C side, the trucks, the buses, that's going to be the new normal in 5 to 10 years. And I think it's still a good time to be out there as an investor. And if you would have invested into a stock like NIO like 6 months ago, $100,000, you would now have 2 million. So I think there's some crazy stuff going on. And I think we're still at the start of a movement.
100% agree with that.
Yeah, and I think if you're driven a Tesla Model S 100,
and that's interesting what you say though.
Yeah, but if you drive a Tesla 100 in ludicrous mode, there's hardly any car which can beat that, right? So no matter how big your combustion engine is, it's next to impossible.
So on the topic of that, have you ever, because I'm honestly not sure, have you ever driven the Battista around?
Well, the Battista in its final specs is just more or less getting ready at the moment. But I was driving it on a dynamic simulator. Yeah, so there's Dainese Engineering in Italy, and they have a dynamic simulator, so which is not just a static one, but it moves. It's sitting on a skid, so you can really feel the acceleration it will have in real time. And I have to say, it's between amazing and scary. It's like an F-16 on a how you call it, on a battleship, on a air freight carrier, and you're kind of towed at the end until that thing let you go, and it's like, wow, it's like a rocket. That's kind of, it's crazy. I think, and I think we reached the limit anyway. It's not what cars can deliver as a performance. It's we're reaching the limit of the physics, what the tires can transform to the tarmac. The tires come to their natural ability to transform performance into traction.
So I have a question.
Pirelli says, I think 0 to 100 from a standstill start, the maximum tires can bear somewhere around 1.7 to 1.8 seconds to 0 to 61, 62 miles. Beyond that, you need really Formula One racetrack tires to go maybe 0.1, 0.2 seconds faster.
So is Pirelli the tire company that Pininfarina chose to?
Pirelli is the tire company for the Pininfarina and for the Rimats. They both go on a Pirelli P1. P0, sorry.
P0s, yeah.
P0.
Yeah. They really kind
Basically
of specify.
P0 Trofeo, to be very precise.
I saw they Rivian will also be using Pirelli tires.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Rivian is another really game changer, right? I think they reinvented the pickup truck, but more the luxury pickup truck sector, because you have others who are going more commercial. I forgot the name of that company which is doing the commercial pickup. Sorry? Yeah, exactly. I always forget that name because it sounds a little bit funny. But I think Rivian is going more about the lifestyle part of the market, like more of the surfers and the skiers and the outdoors and the fun guys. But the Rivian is going to have an amazing performance, and it can do the tank turn, just turning around on basically on a one place by 360 degrees. And I'm still good friend with RJ. And I think they did a phenomenal job. I think they're a little bit delayed from what initially they wanted to do, because they've been also super busy churning out the Amazon delivery truck. But I think it's going to be an amazing pickup truck for the lifestyle segment.
Yeah, no, I'm in contact with a few of the engineers there, and like there's a really good like environment in the company, and they're really passionate, and they're bringing in just the right amount of people. Like they're taking people like just like Pininfarina did, Automobili Pininfarina, take people from Tesla, from Land Rover, from various different brands, and just spring.
There's also a lot of people from McLaren. I think they took also good people from McLaren.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, McLaren as well. Yeah. Just actually, you said also about EVs. Obviously, they're becoming more and more mainstream. What do you think the future holds for an internal combustion engine? Given I think it's 2030 in the UK is the ban, 2040 where I live in Ireland, and then in California now they're saying 2035. So what will happen to these? Like, will they become track cars only, or what?
I think, combustion engines probably have a reason to exist in the one or the other application. The question is only in which application, right? Motorbikes, we don't know. Maybe motorbikes, they're still going to survive a little bit longer. Maybe even as a range extender mode to charge batteries, possibly. But whatever you read right now from the regiment in many countries, like you say, Europe, UK, Scandinavia is even moving faster. It doesn't really look like that mainstream combustion engine is going to be produced new much longer than 2030 to 2035, because Euro 7 homologation nearly kills a combustion engine, because of the amount of filters you need to build behind the engine to get all these values achieved, whether it's NOx or CO2 or whatever. It becomes nearly financially not viable anymore. And then you basically screw down all the performance the engine produces by filtering out all the emissions. So I know that from many car companies, I don't know if you watched recently the news that Daimler is outsourcing the entire engine production to China, and moving, engine production to China for a company like Daimler, who was so proud on their combustion engines, developing all kind of breakthroughs, shows what is in the future core and what is in the future like declining. So if a car manufacturers are serious, they need to look at, do they want to get involved in building battery cells? Packs is logic, you have to build your packs, but with battery cells, are you going to produce your own electrical motors? Are you going to produce your own inverters? But the value chain will change. Look at gearboxes. How many companies today build gearboxes? Yeah. One day, the majority of cars will not need any gearbox anymore. An EV car has one gear. There are some cars who will have maybe two gears for whatever reasons. But normally an EV car will not have gears. It will not have a combustion engine. So there's an awful lot happening. And I think at some point, you cannot be half pregnant. At some point, you need to decide, am I going to be an EV company or a combustion engine company? And I think in the last 24 months, a lot has changed. I mean, there's some few stubborn brands out there. I call them stubborn because they neglect EV completely. Like Ferrari continues to say, we're never going to build electric cars, which I would doubt, because at some point they just might not be able to sell them anymore, because either you don't get a number plate, or the tax is going to be so horrific that you're just not going to find buyers anymore. So I think the point of no return has been crossed. And when we've been in Pebble Beach in 2018, everybody looked at us as exotic. They say, why are you doing an EV hypercar? It's never going to sell. When you come back to the same place in 2019, every third person said, yeah, I heard this EV is coming. I'm interested. Yeah. So you move from a very niche, very exotic stage to already, I wouldn't say mainstream, but you become much more relevant. And I think if you go to Pebble Beach in 2022, people will say, well, you still have a combustion engine car launching, but why is this brand and that brand, they all go electric? So have you missed it? Or why are you thinking that because it's also about not only buying the car and getting it registered today. Maybe one day you will have in London not 8 or 10 pounds congestion charge, maybe you have 100 pounds congestion charge per trip, and then people will just stop using these cars. And we made some fun scenarios. You all know Jurassic Park, right?
Yeah.
So we said there's going to be new Jurassic Parks, and they're going to be called Nürburgring. And then on a Saturday, Sunday, you have to online send an email to Greta Thunberg and say, Greta, I want to buy a CO2 certificate to still drive my old timer. And I have to pay X for the CO2 emissions I produce to drive into the Jurassic Park, which is then exclusive for certain days only for the dinosaurs of the automotive. Now, whether this is going to be 2030, 2040, or 2050, I don't know. But I think, combustion engine cars are going to end up as a rare species, because on the new car side, at some point, look at Norway, 50, 60% of the cars are electric. Then, of course, a car holds 8 to 10 years, so the combustion population is going to decline slowly. But if we talk about 2040, probably everything will be either electric. And then the question is, will it have wheels, or will it go also vertical and fly? And then we'll move into the scenarios of a Star Wars and whatever, the sci-fi scenarios.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on, because also important to note, EVs will get continuously cheaper and cheaper as development continues with the battery packs and such, like gradually lowering the cost. I mean, you see with Tesla now, I mean, the prices keep on getting lower, and of course they have a $25,000 model coming in a few years. So yeah, actually I'd be interested to know, what are your
Sorry, you're muted. Ben?
Self-driving?
Can you repeat? You were muted for a second.
Sorry, yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So I was just wondering, what do you think of Tesla? Like, because obviously they're great praise from, being pioneers in the area, the self-driving tech, everything. But then there's the build quality and, some would say the comfort and the ride and stuff. So what's your opinion on Tesla?
Well, I think that Tesla has evolved fast. I mean, yeah, you could complain about the early Teslas, the quality, the build quality, and material. I had a Tesla Model 3 Performance here in Munich. I liked the car, especially the connectivity was amazing. I could have Zoom conferences on my display, all these things super cool. What really annoyed me is when I had an accident and my car, my door went bad. It took them 6 weeks for the spare parts. So I think Tesla is maturing as a company. But I think the rest of the company never runs as fast as Elon. So they always have a game to catch up. So he promised a lot. And at some point, he always delivers. It's just the gap in between sometimes leaves people with a little bit of a disappointment because he sometimes tends to overpromise. But I'm not saying he's not delivering. It's just, he takes something he has in his head as real today. The rest of the guys have to catch up and make it real a few days or weeks, sometimes months, and sometimes years later. Like we all been waiting for the Tesla Roadster, which was promised for 18, for 19, for 20, and now probably going to see it 2021 or 2022. Yeah. So, but I think if you look at how long the brand exists overall, 13, 14 years and what he has achieved, then we will still all need to say, we would not talk about electric cars the way we talk today if there would not have been Elon Musk. I mean, he was a game changer, and all credits up to him. Nobody is interested who was the second guy who discovered America. It was Christopher Columbus, full stop. And whoever came after him, never got the same limelight. And I think if somebody will say who invented the electric car, I mean, we say it was Elon Musk, even if he might not have invented the electric car. There were many other efforts to put an electric car on the road, but nobody made the breakthrough. And so I would say, yeah, there's smaller, you call it casualties on the way where things didn't happen the way we should, or they took longer, or glitches. But overall, I think we all have to give him credit. I mean, he did things nobody else was daring to do, and none of the large manufacturers have the balls to do what he did. And I think his ex-wife was once quoted, he's the guy with the iron balls. He just does his thing. And he gives a flying fuck on whatever anybody else says, he just does it. And I mean, we all be happy if we would have one Tesla, but then he had PayPal, he has SpaceX, he has Hyperloop. So I think the amount of activities he's doing and the breakthroughs, I think is just remarkable.
100%. Have you ever had a conversation with Elon Musk?
No, never really face to face. I have, in the early days when I was thinking about leaving Audi, I had 2 or 3 phone calls with his team and 1 call even with him, but I never met him face to face and had a conversation with him. Unfortunately, I think would have been very interesting.
Yeah. Is there any questions that you would like to ask him? Like knowing what you know now of how he's done everything with Tesla and basically created a mainstream.
No, I would ask him how he sees the world in 2030.
Yeah,
because then I could do a couple of good bets and buy a couple of things early enough. But if you would have bought Tesla 10 years ago as a stock, then you would be very well off today.
Yeah.
So regarding Tesla and Elon Musk, when we look at Tesla and the growth it has overcame in the past even 8 years with the 2012 Model S, like 0 to 60 in a little over 4 seconds, 265 miles on a single charge. Now you're getting over 400 miles, 0 to 60 in like almost 2 seconds. And then when we look at gas cars, where the performance is steadily have gotten better, but it's just been like little improvements, not like 2 or 3 seconds. Do you feel that gas cars or internal combustion engines are reaching their peak?
Yeah, I mean, I think on efficiency, there's still a way they could go. I think especially with the hybrid technology, you can still optimize combustion engine cars a lot. The question is at what cost and at what kind of complexity? Because if you tear down an electric car and you tear down a combustion engine car, there's just so much more mechanical engineering you need to do to put together a combustion engine car, which basically is also cost. The limiting breakthrough for EV cars is basically the cost of the battery cells. If we're able to make battery cells more efficient and we move to higher energy density, like 350, 400 kilowatts density rates, I think then the EV cars will have the final big breakthrough. Combustion engines are a piece of art. And I think the only thing the EV industry has not achieved yet, especially on the luxury side, is a lot of clients talk to me and compare it and say, look, a combustion engine car for me is still like a very antique, beautiful mechanical watch. An EV car is like a digital watch. And there are no digital watches people really collecting except some very special things. It's still the emotional, the mechanical, the touch and feel, the handicraft thing. So I think on the super high end, the combustion engines still have that prestige of being something super special and super valuable. But on the mainstream, I don't see that combustion engines going to survive at all. And also the performance, as you said, and the efficiency increase. Imagine if you get double the power at half the cost in a battery cell, then nobody needs combustion engines for smaller, medium-sized cars. Especially if you talk with the arrival of electric, not combined, but kind of happen accidentally at the same time, we also move to more autonomous. So the question is, how many people will still want to own a car in 2030, 2035? And how many people will call like the electric autonomous Uber, and it's maybe an Uber share, and it picks you up, it gets you where you want to be. And rather than wasting your time driving your car, you sit there and you work, or you consume content, or you sleep. So I think the problem is that the auto industry was hit with so many challenges at the same time, where normally we were handling each of these challenges in a frequency of 10 to 20 years, tick the box, then go to the next one. Petrol engine, diesel engine, catalyzers, ABS, ESP, there was always like a technology, and when you solved it, you moved to the next one, you got it into the basic package. Now suddenly, unfortunately, you get electrification coming. At the same time, the autonomous hype starts. People start sharing cars, or don't want to own cars, and then everything gets super connected. So suddenly you have 4 significant technology disruptions happening at the same time, where in cycle times, where the computer industry, like mobile phones, are able to handle them, but the car industry was never able to handle so many technology advancements in one go at the same time. And that's why I think when we talk about cars today, the predominant concept is still, I drive it myself, I go from A to B, I use it X% of my day, but I still want to own it. I park it in front of my house, and we as a family have X amount of cars. And you still define, not you, but the society still defines itself to a certain extent that a car is a status symbol, especially upper middle class families. People have their little houses, and then everybody looks, oh, what kind of car he has. And I know when I was jogging through Beverly Hills, you see like every second house there was a Tesla there. It was just cheap in California, and it's still owned. Now in 20 years, people say, I don't really need to own that car. Maybe I still own one car and the other 3 we use, whatever. It needs to be electric. Of course, it was going to be autonomous. I'm going to share it. And when I enter my car or any car, I want my profile to be there, my play music, my favorite channels, everything. And that's probably the problem, is not the engine. The engine is just a conversion of one technology from a petrol engine to an electric engine. I think the big transformation is, what does a car stand for in the future? Is it still a car, or is it basically using mobility? Like, I don't know if you guys still had the CDs, right? You still know CDs, yeah? Before the CDs, there were black vinyl, how you call it, music plates. So I think in 10 years, people say, what CD? CD player? What the fuck? I have Netflix, I have Spotify, I have Apple Music, So the question is, we'll move along that paradigm from owning to using in so many factors that I don't know what will be the definition of a car, or will it be the definition, I want to be mobile. And I want to be mobile again around any need of being mobile, up, horizontal, hyperloop, We're still dreaming about Spocky Beam Me Up. I don't know, 2050, maybe we have ability that mobility is, you press a button and you appear in Australia. But I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I think like all the developments in the automotive industry just seem to be all happening all at once now, with electric, with self-driving and all. Like the 2020s will probably be the decade where we'll really see everything kind of ramped up through. It is interesting though what you said. I for one wonder, my dad was pondering buying a 993 Porsche 911 recently enough, and I was saying, like, will like classic cars like that, say, like really special cars, Jag E types, even a 458 Speciale, when they get to that stage where like everyone's going around in their driverless pods and such, I wonder, will these cars be like incredibly valued and sought after, while like the ultra elite, as you say, to drive around the Nürburgring just to go for their burn, or just to admire, to look at, I do wonder that,
Yeah, and I think we go to 2 or 3 phases, because you guys still all have your driving license, right?
Yeah.
Yes. You still did a proper driving license and a proper car with a steering wheel, with a gear knob, or at least an automatic, and you still manage traffic by yourself. Now in 20, 30 years, the next generation might not even have a proper driving license for this kind of things anymore. So then you might have these Porsche 911, but you maybe are the last generation how to handle this. It's like when you see Luke Skywalker and he finds like one of these ancient starfighters, he needs to get in and everything is still outdated and it makes funny noise, but it still flies, right? It's like you go into an old airplane still with a propeller in front. But not many people can fly that anymore. So that's kind of the funny thing, that things are moving so fast, but we don't even know what's happening in 20 years. I agree. Probably the 458 will be a collector's piece, but the question is who's going to be able to drive it? Your dad and maybe you. And at some point, it's going to end up somewhere as a display in a barn or in a collector's museum. And at some point, people might not want to have it anymore, because people can't really repair it anymore. So, but I think it's going to be interesting to watch and to predict what's going to happen. I think we had that change 120 years ago. You still know these ancient pictures, New York with the horse carriages. And then people said, oh, we're never going to have the same amount of cars because we don't have enough chauffeurs. And when you look at the same picture 20 years later and all the horse carriages are gone and you have all the cars there. So I don't know. Well, it's going to be interesting to watch. As I said, nobody can predict the future except it's going to be very different to what we know. And it's a question of how far you look. Is it in 5 years? Probably not. In 10 years, probably we're going to see a lot of changes already. In 20 years, for sure, there's going to be a paramount change, especially if all the aero taxis get licensed and the aero taxi becomes a new, not completely normal, but isn't as exotic as we still perceive it today. And then you're going to have Hyperloop, which is also an interesting way, right? If a Hyperloop will work, you can travel from London to Manchester in 25, 30 minutes, no traffic jam. So why should you have a car and you arrive in Manchester or you travel New Jersey to Boston, or New York to Boston in 30, 40 minutes? You don't need an airplane anymore. And when you arrive there, Uber has an EV pod waiting for you, which just comes 20 seconds before you arrive because your Google profiles tells the Uber taxi you're arriving in 20 seconds. It's standing there and say, hey, Ben, waiting for you, ready to take you wherever you want to be.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think as well, it's fascinating to see how these companies have evolved now with Uber going from just the rideshare, app that it was at the start, and now they're developing their own actual hardware. They're, I know, still very early stages, and you see with companies like, I don't know if you know much about Canoe.
Of course, I know Canoe very well.
Yeah, they're, I've talked to them and done some work with them in the past, yeah, I mean, that is the future, I think, definitely in cities for sure, yeah.
And I mean, also, who invested into Rivian, right? It's Amazon. Rivian is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle Amazon wants to put together to become as dominant in the mobility game as they are already today in e-commerce. I mean, they have Souks, they have Rivian, they're building their own delivery trucks, they're building their own drones or drone delivery systems. You can imagine, and I mean, look at the market capitalization of Amazon. There's only one company which is bigger than them, that's Apple. So you can bet if they get into the mobility game, they think about a much, much bigger game when just producing cars or something autonomous driving around. You know, how many clients they have on Amazon Prime tomorrow, they can kill somebody like Uber easily and just adding, the pickup function. I mean, they're already dominating things like food in some areas. So I think you're going to see much different players in the mobility space as we see them today. And probably there's not going to be mainly the car manufacturers because they think like manufacturers. They still measure their success in number of units produced and sold, while the future metrics is the miles you sell and at what price can you sell a mile to a user, and are you going to make money on that? It's like the Netflix, how many accounts you have and how much movies do they watch. It's not how many movies have we produced. That's irrelevant. It's how much users do we have, how many subscribers, and what is an average subscriber to which kind of services is subscribing to. It's like an Apple, you have an Apple account, you have a storage account, you have a music account, you have this, you have that. And then it's basically revenue per user per month. That's a very different metrics than the one you have today. How many units is Ford producing globally in its factories?
Yeah, the subscription model actually is quite interesting because there's a number of brands. I believe there's a Chinese firm who are planning to exclusively do
Link
the.
and Co.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah,
and even Volvo, who are of course owned by Geely, they
yeah.
have plans in future to just offer the subscription model.
Yeah, although I think that when you look at some companies and they call it subscription, you need to go a little bit deeper because subscription is very much a buzzword. And it's sometimes used, and when you look deeper, it's still kind of a leasing model. A real subscription is really like have it today, drop it tomorrow, take something else day after, and be super flexible. And you just pay a fee and you go pay per use. So we have in Europe also models like 6 chair. You had drive now, car to go. So very different of these, right? Pay per use basis. But the consumers have not broadly adapted it yet. So I think it's still in a nascent stage, but we're going to see much more on that in the years to come for sure. Again, you're talking to generation Netflix, you're talking to generation iTunes, people are used to this kind of services. So why not apply it also on the mobility space?
Definitely, I think it'll be much more easier to integrate with what's it, Generation X or
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think Fisker also have a subscription service that they've been talking about. But
sorry, come again?
I think Fisker's also talked about a subscription service.
Yeah. I think many talk about it. I think they need to see who can really manage it, because financially it's not that easy. You, as a car company, you need to also somehow have these assets somewhere financed by someone. It's not that, you don't have an endless balance sheet to keep hundreds of thousands of cars on your balance sheet. Somebody needs to finance them and operate them. So that's why talking of subscription is one thing, but really making it happen is a second thing. I think Faraday Future talked about it. There are many brands talking about it. I analyzed the subscription model very deeply when we did some due diligences before we founded Pininfarina, because initially we were looking at buying into an EV company. And you see that a lot of these companies underestimate the financial constraints the model has on their working capital.
Yeah, I know BMW in Nashville, Tennessee had some sort of a subscription program where you essentially pay, and it was expensive too. I think it was $900 a month, and you just call in, say, I want a car, and then they deliver it to you. You drive it wherever, you leave it there. Someone's going to pick it up, and then whenever you want another one, you call.
Yeah, but that's still for me more of a rental, right? It's not yet. Subscription is more continuous. Like Sixt, I don't know, Sixt as well, right? So it's a modern mobility company here, strong in Europe, but they're also in the US. They call it Sixt card. And it's a card, you pay like 1,500 euro a month, for example, or thousands. And then wherever you go, to any Sixt station, you pick up a car, you drive it as long as you want, you drop it back, and then you fly from A to B to C to D, and always just swipe your card, and you have endless mobility, like an endless usage of mobility wherever you are with that card. So that gives you total freedom. The downside is you don't own any car. For me, for going to the airport, sometimes you leave a lot of stuff in your car. It's also your storage. And then you come back, and I lived that life for 6 months having no car. And it was annoying. You come back from a flight and you want to go to the gym, but your gym bag is at home. So you can't leave it in the car. So it has upsides and downsides, not owning a car at all. Of course, you don't have to pay for parking space. You don't have to pay for insurance. So it depends also on the flexibility of a user, how flexible you are to accept that you don't own a car anymore, but you always have a clean, washed car, fully fueled up, and you just use it as you wish. And I think it's, as you said, it's a consumer change happening probably over generations. It doesn't happen instantly.
Perfect. I've just noticed, you're probably a very busy man, and I thank you, coming on quite late as well, but we've been on for an hour now, and but I really appreciate you coming on, of course, for the call. We all do, and it's great to have you on. You're officially our first guest. So
really appreciate it.
So it's a premiere. No, for sure. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm